Well, we have reached that magical time of season when school is about to get out for the summer, and that means we need to make some gifts for our teachers and then some awesome things for the kids. This is something we like to do every year, make a little something different for each of the kids' teachers, and this year is no different. So this is one of my favorite gifts to make for teachers, educators, folks who need a little bit of upright vertical storage and a place to hide their treats. It's a super easy project and usually turns out pretty slick. So we're going to go through how to make these. I think you'll find that it's really easy, a lot of fun, and usually ends up meaning a lot to the teachers. I hope you enjoy. As much as I enjoy putting these little pencil boxes together, I really don't have a template, any kind of design that I follow per se. A lot of times the dimensions are based off of just the scrap that I have available out in the shop. These are all just cut-offs left over from other projects, just kind of keep them around. If you're like me, it's always nice to be able to make something out of really what would just, go into the fireplace during the winter. So out of all that scrap that I had laying on the table, I cut out the front, back, sides to 2 pencil boxes, and I'm starting to work on the lids here in just a minute. But went ahead and took some scrap cedar and laminated that together. These have been run through the planer once, and these will be fitting up with butt joints. And I've currently got one of the other lids. It's being glued up right now as well. And then once that dries a little bit more, we'll run it through the planer and make that smooth. But I'm hoping that that walnut next to the cedar will really pop on that lid there. And this is that second box. Just laminated up a couple pieces there. And they've been run through the planer once. So to come back and probably sand out some of those blade marks, but not too much because I do like that. I like those rough looks in there. And then walnut, and I think that's a little bit of cherry on there. I have to clean those up a little bit as well. For this first one, the sides are going to sit on top of that bottom piece, so you'll be able to see the cedar from the side and then from the bottom. And then a lot of times I'll drill a hole in there and put Craig jig screws in there and dowel plugs. I think this time I'm going to use copper nails, but it's going to be kind of the rough put together on the outside of that box, and making sure those lines are as tight as we can. Butt joints are kind of hard for hiding where you don't have stuff lined up perfectly, but that's okay. A little bit of sawdust and wood glue does wonders on that. So I changed my mind. I think I am going to use the Craig jig with the dowel pins in there. I think the contrast will look really nice on the bottom with that pine dowel. And then I think I might still do the copper nails on the outside of the box. Now, do I think you need the Craig screws for strength? No, I do not. However, I think the dowel pins look super cool, and if you're going to drill a hole, you may as well put a screw in there for a mechanical fastener. And you know how to keep your clamps on there as long as you normally would. So for box number 1, I've got all my screws are sitting there. I don't need clamps anymore. What I do need to do is start cutting out those dowel pins. Once they're glued and inserted in there, I'll sand them down flat. And then once they're sanded down flat, then I can use some of these cool little copper nails for a little bit of fancy flair. Again, are they required? Absolutely not. Do they look cool? Totally. And then we'll start moving forward towards getting the dividers in here and being able to set the hinge in here for that lid that's going to go up and down. So that's the last of the dowel pins. It's time to run that guy over to the belt sander. And there we have our first trip over to the belt sander done. Got the dowel pins sanded down flush. Nice contrast with that cedar on the back. And now it's time to get that lid kind of formed up, and we'll start doing some spacers and dividers. So this is what that lid looks like before we run it through the planer. It's walnut, cedar, and then just repeating on that. This is where we're currently sitting on those boxes. So again, I went through and just kind of did a little brief sanding on this box around the outside edge. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you or not, but I made a couple of mistakes. And I'm not sure what to do because it's the first time I've ever made a mistake when I'm doing any kind of woodworking, which of course is a lie. Anybody that's done any kind of woodworking knows that it's part of the journey. It's part of the fun. But this is where I'm at now. So I went ahead and I picked out a piece of wood that I'm going to use for the lid. And I've done some rough shaping and sanding on this. This doesn't have to be perfect at this stage because I'm just looking to make sure that things are going to fit correctly before I go back and put it all together. But what I find is pretty easy is I get 2 spacers. And I know that that's roughly how high my lid is going to sit in there. You can see that it doesn't recess all the way down in there. To get that lid to open up, I'm going to try to figure out something fun to do right there for the lid. And then the back portion, that's going to be the pencil box, or where the pencils or brushes are going to go, we'll have this side piece. It's got a little bevel on that, so it just stays out of the way of when that lid opens up. And that guy will sit in there something like that. And then I usually cut 2 spacers, and they'll do the same thing. One goes on each side, and push it up. And that's how I know that how that space is going to be just exactly where I want it. Now, where I made my mistakes is normally I'll cut a groove right here and I'll cut a groove right here, but in my excitement to get this all put together, I forgot to do that. No big deal. Glue is plenty strong for what we're going for on this, and then I'll probably do some type of decorative dowel pins in the side again there, just to give it the illusion of holding that in place. So that will all go together. something like that. And then the spacer in the back, actually one of them will end up going in the middle right there. This second box, same concept, little different shape. Again, I don't have a template for these, so I just kind of shoot from the hip with the scrap. But this is that lid, cedar and walnut. And then I have my spacers here and here to set that height. And you can see that that one is just a little bit above there. And then I'm going to use cedar on the inside. Be something like that for that back. And then these will obviously come out on the inside of here. There'll just be a little ledge for that lid to sit down on. Again, same thing. Forgot to do the grooves on the back and on this middle piece, the sides, but that's okay. We'll figure out a way to make that look sharp. But that's kind of what we're looking at there. It's a little more fit and finish, and we'll do some final sanding. And here in just a minute, I'm going to show you how to do the use this piece of brass dowel for the hinge. It's going to go through the side, and then it'll just hinge up and down. Just as a side note, the inside of this box, I'm going to leave that cedar, all the cedar, and there's going to be bare. So once that polyurethane or whatever I end up putting on the outside is cured and dried, and you can't smell it anymore, anytime you open this box, you should be able to smell that cedar coming out. I think that is a huge win. Now, for doing the hinges on these pencil boxes, you can use a bunch of different hinge styles. That's really up to you. What I like using is a 3/16 inch brass dowel. So from the front of the box to wherever that pin's going to go, it's really important that you make that uniform on both sides so it doesn't bind on itself when it's opening or closing. What I like to do is I'll put a couple pieces of sandpaper back to back so it doesn't slip down very easy, and then just put that clamp on there so there's no shifting when I do these pins. For this one, I measured from the front to the back 6 3/4 inches, and then I just have this handy little tool. I really like these squares, pretty simple. For this one, I just know I need to go flush with the top of that box on the line, and then scribe my X, and I know exactly where that bit's going to go on both sides. So I'll go ahead and mark both sides, get those drilled in, put the pins in there. I won't glue anything yet because it's very important that you be able to take these pins in and out while you're still doing the final fit and finish. And in here, you want to make sure that when that lid opens, it doesn't bind on your divider piece on the inside. So just a quick example of what I was talking about when you're setting the height on the separators in the back. In order for this lid to open to the height that I want it to open, which is just about perfect right there, this divider piece had to be cut pretty much on a 45. That way, when it's all put together and the spacers are pulled out, we have this guy on a slant. Little sit down in there. Put those pins in, and once all the sanding, the fit and finish is done, everything's ready to go, I'll put just a tiny bit of super glue or epoxy on the inside of where these pins are, slide the pins in, and that basically locks it into place. And then we'll have a little lifting mechanism to lift that up and down. Another thing you can do when you're putting those hinges in there, drilling the holes for the hinges anyways, if you're not exactly sure where you're going to land, you can just pull that lid forward a little bit so that it rests on the edge, but it also is all the way forward. And then you can measure out exactly where you think you need to drill that hole. So you can see where that slopes back up here. I don't want to be drilling too close to that, so I'll just come forward a little bit and make sure we're landing somewhere in there if possible. Fast forward a little bit, and this is where we're currently sitting on our boxes. Last night I went ahead and glued these partitions together since I forgot to cut the grooves in here. It worked out plenty good. It's still super strong. It's got glue on the back and on the bottoms. It's just not going anywhere. But for a little added flair on both of these, I went ahead and did another dowel pin. And these ones this time are just straight dowel pins in there. Same with these ones. So they just go through into each one. Did I need to do that? No, but it looks cool. At least I think it looks cool. So now we're at the point where it's time to put these hinges on. What I'm going to do with each one of these lids with the hinges is I'm going to put a little dab of super glue or epoxy, whatever I've got handy out here, and then I'll lay it. I don't know if you can see, but I added a little ledge in there so it knows where to sit. And then I'll push those dowel pins in there, the brass dowel pins in there. And it's not a whole lot of epoxy, just enough that when that pushes in there, it's going to seat really well. And then I'll let that set up. Just let it sit there for probably 20, 30 minutes, something like that. And then at that point in time, we can start moving the actual hinge. Like so. The next thing I'm going to probably work on is some type of a decorative pull on the top of each one of these just to make it easier to lift up and open. But when that is opened, it's a little something like that. And then from the side, and all sorts of storage for pens and brushes and anything that a teacher might want to have up off their desk. So this is what I came up with to open those lids. Just some old copper pipe. Practicing making bracelets. This is some of the leftover bits and pieces laying around. So just attach it on there flat. Give a good purchase to lift it up and down. I think it has a good look, good feel. Should work out fine. Let's get those put on there. Got those handles attached. I just use a single screw through the flange there. I only use a single screw because I'll use epoxy underneath it, and that's quite a bit of strength for what this is. So here we are. So we're getting pretty close to the end of this project. Before I go too much farther with the finishing, I had my daughter write a little message on the backside of each one of these boxes to her teachers, and then I'm just going to wood burn over the top of her little message. But just to kind of maintain their privacy, decided not to show that. But a little sample of wood burning. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of different things you can do, a little artistic flair, and I like to use templates and stencils, and you can do all sorts of cool stuff. So just remember, wood burning's cool. Well, I forgot to film the application of the polyurethane, but I just used a rattle can spray-on warm gloss polyurethane. Works pretty good for lots of different surfaces, but these are our finished products. And one of the fun little pieces of flair I like to do on these, and I'm covering this up just to respect some privacy, but I have my daughter write on the back of these, and then I just wood burn her handwriting. Turns out super cute, a little personal touch. And again on that side, a little bit of wood burning action. If you've never wood burned cedar, you're missing out. But any gift for a teacher would not be complete without some chocolate. Perfect. And here we have a couple of finished pencil boxes for all your treat and pencils and brushes and upright storage needs. I hope you enjoyed it.